Well, hello. Good afternoon from Vienna, but wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having the most wonderful day. Thank you all so much for joining in. I'm so excited to kick off another wonderful week of the Bad Website Club. If you're joining for the first time, hi, my name's Ramon. My dear Jess and I have been doing this series of demos and lab sessions about learning how to make websites in stressful, easy, fun, perfectionism avoiding ways. So, before I bring on our esteemed guest, just a couple things before we get started. First of which is our code of conduct. As always, everybody that participates in the Bad Website Club, we hope that we expect you to behave according to the way you would like others to behave. That extends to both the Bad Website Club itself here on stream, but also on our Discord. Yes, we have a Discord. I will generate a link as we speak. If you're watching after the fact, don't worry. The Discord link does expire after an hour, but come chase us for one. Cool. I think that's everything that we're missing. This week we're going to be learning from the kind folks at Kirby. More on that in just a second. However, after this week, season 1 of the Bad Website Club will have concluded. Thank you so much for joining us for this whole week. We'll be taking a little step back to plan what's next. You're going to hear more about it tomorrow, but today is about Kirby. So let me bring on our incredible guest. I'm going to bring on Bastian from the Kirby team. Hello, Bastian. I'm bringing you on now. Hey.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for doing this with us. If you don't mind, Bastian, I'd love to hear a little bit about yourself. If you want to share where you're based, what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm based in Germany, south of Frankfurt. Just talked about it in a nice little city called Heidelberg or close to it. I've been building websites since 2002, I think. So quite a long time already. Studied design, got into development, got sidetracked, and now I'm more like a developer than a designer. Yeah, started building Kirby 11 years ago, which is also quite a long time ago already.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I have a wife, 2 kids, a cat.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Lovely.
looking
I
forward
can
to this.
Yeah, same here. I cannot wait to learn so much from you. What we're going to be doing next, first of all, I've got some links here, which I'll be dropping in. First of all, if you want to check out Kirby, which Bastian's going to be showing us in a moment, head on over to getkirby.com. I'm going to go ahead and share your screen in just a moment, and
Yeah.
I'll be hanging out here in the back. But if any urgent questions come up, I will very kindly pop in to ask those questions. Folks, please ask Bastians all the questions you like in the chat. I will be bookmarking them for a Q&A session at the end. But if there's something really pressing, of course, do please let us know.
Yeah, sounds great. Exactly.
Perfect.
Keep the questions coming. And if you, if something cannot be answered, you can always find us on Discord or on our forum and ask later if the time runs out.
Speaking of Discord, I'm going to go ahead and highlight the Discord link if you want to go and hang out and talk about Kirby. It's chat.getkirby.com. And we'll be sharing these again at the end. So don't worry, this will be in the YouTube description if you're watching later. All that good link stuff will be there. So without further ado, Bastian, I'm going to go ahead and share your screen.
Nice. Thank you.
If you're watching, folks, and you'd like us to bump up the screen size a little bit, all you got to do is let us know. I think here you might want to hold on. Let me see if I think this looks good. Folks, as I said, if you want it to be a little bit bigger, please do let us know in the chat. I'll otherwise be hanging out in the back collecting questions. See you all in a bit.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me here. I'm really looking forward to demo a bit of Kirby today. I already said we are working on this for 11 years now. It's a project that started as a side project and got into something professional. At the moment, we are 5 people working on it. And Kirby, to get started, is a file-based CMS, and you're gonna see in a second what this means. This is our website. This is probably also the starting point for you if you want to check it out. If you want to read our docs after this introduction, we have all kinds of resources there, tutorials, and we also have a YouTube channel if you want to hang out there and yeah, get more details after this session. But if you want to get started afterwards, the probably most important link for you is this one here. This is the try link. So you can try Kirby for as long as you want on your local machine. You need a PHP server for that. I'm personally using a software called MAMP, which is a PHP server on Mac OS and also Windows. So it's super easy to get started. It's basically just an application. You download it, you start it, you point it to a folder, and then you can drop Kirby in there and get started with building websites with it. There are various other ways that you can get started. They are mentioned in our docs. I'm not going into details about the installation because then it's just wasting too much time, I think. But when you end up here, you have two choices. We have the starter kit and we have the plain kit. So our starter kit would be a full built website with a theme, with dummy content. It pretends to have like a photography portfolio. It also has a bit of a blog, a visual blog with articles, an about page and all kinds of stuff. And it is really more like a showcase of features. So it's rather complex if you look at it first, if you're really starting as a beginner, but it's also a nice way to get into little things, how we build certain kind of features. We documented the source code for it, so you can dive through it and just find your way through it. It's a cool way to explore Kirby, but when you get started for the first time, I would really recommend that you get the plain kit instead, because that is following more our philosophy of not giving you like a huge setup and then you have to remove all the parts that don't fit your site. It's really just a plain bad website. It fits quite well to today. So this is also what I'm using today. So if you click here, you can download it. I already did that. And this is how it looks. So yeah, it's quite literally a bad website, intentionally, because it doesn't bring anything. It doesn't bring any content. It doesn't bring any styling. And yeah, the idea is to get you started as minimal as possible. And lots of people start there actually. And this is, wait a second, this is how it looks like when you extracted the zip file on your computer. And I just want to take you briefly through the folders to give you a better idea how a Kirby installation looks like. So we have our content folder, and that is kind of our database for all the content of the site. And I'm going to talk more about this in a second. And then there's the Kirby folder, which is kind of the application. And you shouldn't really touch this. Just ignore it for most of the times. Whenever we release a new version, then you can download that new version, the Kirby folder for that new version, and then replace that. That's pretty much all you have to do with this folder. Otherwise, you can happily ignore it. There's a media folder that is a temporary folder being used by Kirby to store resized images, all kinds of stuff that Kirby needs to work. You can also happily ignore it. If you delete it, Kirby will recreate it. So no big deal if it's gone at some point. But yeah, also just ignore it. And then there's the site folder, and that is probably the most relevant one if you start building things with Kirby, because there are templates in there, as you can already see. Configuration files are in there, all kinds of stuff to get your site up and running as a developer. And we will spend a bit more time in this later. But the most interesting part, I think, is the content folder. So normally when you look at the content management system, it would probably be like a more traditional one, like WordPress. It would probably get its data from a database. And for us, this is this folder. So the folder, as you can see it right here, has the bare minimum that Kirby needs. It has an arrow folder. It needs that one for any kind of error that could happen on your website. So for example, if I type something in that doesn't exist, it would pull data from that arrow folder. And it also has a home folder, which it uses whenever you don't add any path to your URL. And it just starts there. It somehow needs to get the data from there. So this is kind of the bare minimum that Kirby needs. And then there's this site.txt. I'm going to talk about this in a second as well. So every page in Kirby has a folder and its own text file. And within the text file, there's all the content for that page. And so next to the pages and their text files, there's the site.txt, which has global data. So for example, the site title, as you can already probably see here, if you have something that you need on every page, that would go in here. Site title, as I just mentioned, but also social media links or anything else that, I don't know, maybe a little paragraph for your footer that would appear on every page that turns up in this text file. And the concept in general is that if you want to create a new page, you just go ahead and create a new folder. So I would create an about folder now if I want to have an about page. And as soon as I create that folder, that page starts to exist. So now I can go back to my browser and I can visit that about page. And as you can see, it already took the folder name as the title of that page. It doesn't have a text file yet, so it doesn't really know about a real title, but it just assumes, okay, so far the folder name is the title as well for the site. And it also took the folder name as the URL for this page. And this is all how it works. So now we can go on and drop in a text file here. Normally I just rename or just name the text file according to the folder name. That's the easiest way to go forward, but this is up to you. And if I open this up in the editor, can use any text editor or your code editor, probably the preferred way to do this, I can start filling in content. So I get this from the site.txt, but you get the idea. So now we have a title field here, and I can say, okay, this is the About Me page. And if I switch back, you can see now it replaced the folder name with the real title. I'm going to show you in a minute how this has been used in the template to actually print that title that we just saw, but for now, this is how it works. And so in Kirby, what we can do in these text files is we can have multiple fields. A field would be the name of the field here, then the colon, and then anything that goes in that field, anything that could be plain text. Just text, like here. It could also be Markdown or HTML or JavaScript or JSON or CSS or whatever is expressible as plain text can go in there. And it can be single line, it can be multiple lines, that doesn't really matter. So that's the simple format for a field. And if you need multiple fields, you can create a separator here like this with 4 regular dashes. And then the next field would come and it would follow the same format. So for example, if I want to create a bit of text about me, I could then have a text field and write something about me. And this could go on and on. So for example, maybe I want to talk about my skills or my family or my work or my whatever. So I can keep on adding fields to this as I go. They don't have to exist before I even start templating. It can be done later. I can already start with all the content. I can start with hardly any content. It's really up to you. And I also can change those fields at any time later. So it's not really a binding contract with this text file that you have to fulfill then forever and ever. It's really just a starting point. And also maybe important, all the other fields are, all the other pages are not necessarily, they don't have to have the same fields. Every page can have its own fields. The About page might have completely different fields than a project, for example. So let's just go on and add a couple more pages. I'm pretending to be an artist with a portfolio or designer with a portfolio. So I would create a projects page, drop in some stuff there, call it projects. etc., etc. So now I could go on and create more main pages, but I can also create sub-pages. Especially with this portfolio, I would now start and create my first portfolio project. If I can type. And again, I normally try to call those text files something that makes sense. So this would be a project now. So I call it a project.txt. This is totally up to you. Important is only that this is related to your templates later, and I'm getting there in a bit. Like the title, and here we go. So this would be a starting point now. I have a first project, I have my portfolio page, and now I can also serve to my projects, and I can also browse this project that I just created. And as you can see, now this is a nested subpage. I have projects and then I have bad project. And this could go on and on. There is hardly any limit. The file system is a limit at some point, but I don't think you will ever reach that limit. So you can have really deep trees of pages that you can map out with this method. And it's quite nice to build websites this way on a content basis first, because you can really just think about how should I structure my content, where should my pages be, especially when you work on client projects, for example. It's often super interesting to talk about clients with their existing websites, how you can reorganize them or clean them up in many ways. This is the first step to any new client project. And it's just so much fun because it's so easy to do that on a file system. And when we are in such a project here, for example, where this would be a typical case for additional information, this is not just about text. I also might have videos for my project, or I might have images, or maybe I even have a PDF to describe it, or something else. I don't know. In other content management systems, you might have already seen that there's often a global asset management where you put those files and then you link them to such a page, whereas we really try to put all those files that belong to a certain page in that same folder. If I pull up a couple demo images and I place them in there, this is normally how we do it. And the idea being that this entire content folder should be as human readable, as understandable, and well organized as it could be. And it should match something that you would do on your own if you wouldn't build a website. If you organize your own projects on your hard drive, your work-related things, or your, I don't know, your tax stuff, then you would probably end up with a similar structure oftentimes. And this is the idea. So you should be able to go in there and just feel comfortable within your content and being able to organize stuff like this. As I said before, it can be images, it can be videos, it can be pretty much anything, any file format that you feel like belongs to such a project, belongs to a product, belongs to your about page. Maybe you have a profile picture, then it would go in there as well. So now with this, we have a great start for our templating session, because now we have a bit of content that we can work with and that we can try to use as a baseline for our design or for the rest of the site. And building templates is happening in the site folder. So I go into the site folder, we ignore the rest for now and just focus on the templates folder. And in there you can see there's just one template so far. It's called default PHP. And this is also kind of a convention in Kirby that would be like the fallback template for Kirby. If it can't find anything else, it will always look for the default.php. If you also remove that, things will break, but as soon as it's there, it's going to be happy. If I open that in my editor, you can see that this so far is like really minimal. It's just a headline. I'm going to remove this for a second, just to talk about how templates work in Kirby. Everything that you put into a template is being sent to the browser. So what you would do now as a first step normally is to create an HTML document. So we go with this, we don't need that. So we have our head, we have our title, we have our body, and then the content would go into the body. I'm not giving an HTML class today, but I think that should be fine. I want to really focus on the most minimal HTML now, though, because I think you can all build great stuff on top of that then afterwards, and it's, I think, easier to understand if it's just minimal HTML. So this would now be sent entirely to the browser. If I reload this and I open the source, you can see this is exactly what I just entered into the editor. And of course, this is totally underwhelming. It's just a white page, and it's going to be the same for everything because every page so far always loads the default template. We don't have any other template so far. Let me bring in this H1 again, because this is what I wanted to do. And now we could create entirely static HTML, write out a title, write out our text, but this is not the idea of a content management system. Content should now be dynamic. And this is exactly what this part here does. This is the PHP part to pull in the title of the current page. Because now we are browsing around, Kirby is always calling this default template or loading this default template. And then for every page, that title should be different. So we have two main objects in Kirby's templates. One would be the page, and another one would be the site. We get to that in a second. And the page is always referring to the current page that is being opened. So if I serve around, we have the same thing that I saw before. So now it's here, it's home. If I go to projects, it would be projects. If I go to about, it would be about me. It means that it goes to the text file that belongs to that page and pulls out the title field that we added there and displays it here. This means that I can now work with all the fields that I'm creating in the same way. So for example, if I have a text field, I can use it like this, and maybe put it into an additional div or into an this entire thing into an article. Doesn't really matter, but it would just now again look for a text field in the text file for that current page and then try to load that. So if we go here and I reload that, you can see projects doesn't really have a text field. Home also doesn't have a text field. And my about page should have a text field. So here it appears. And what you can see here is nothing really blows up if the text field isn't there. It doesn't really matter that much. It just won't do anything. So it doesn't expect every page to have a text field. You can just work with it. So for example, for some pages, you would need this to show the text, and in other pages you really don't want to do that, then it's totally fine. You can bring this later. You could also do the same for sub headlines or anything else where you say, okay, sometimes I have one, sometimes I don't have one. It's not a big deal. And I mentioned before that next to the page object, there's also the site object. So for example, if we look at the document title up here, we also want to have this as a dynamic little thing here. So I can use the same page title here again to fill in my document title. Document title would then change here up here as well. This is great, but oftentimes I also want to combine this with the site title with some fancy separator. And now I can do the same thing and replace this with site. So this is the second main object in our templates, and it refers to whatever is in, where do I find it? In my site.txt. So now this would go and have a look at the site.txt and then pull in whatever I added here as a title. So if I add bad website here, and I use it here in the document title, I would get this combination of the current page title plus the site title. So this works great already. And if you think about the social media links that I mentioned before, you could now have like a link to your to your YouTube channel in the site.txt, something like this. And then you add it to the footer and you're ready to go. So this would be If your footer would be down here, you could then echo your YouTube channel link here. This is how it works. This is all the magic that goes into that. And as a next step, we would now also add some CSS, maybe some JavaScript to this, and of course, extend it a bit more. I kept it very basic so far. But what's important here is all of this is really just HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We don't bring any front-end magic stuff out of the box that you have to use or that is getting automatically injected. You are entirely in control. So for example, if you decide to build this with a JavaScript framework of your choice or with a CSS framework of your choice, you can do that. And Kirby doesn't really care how the folders are organized. So for example, I personally, most of the times, use something like an assets folder, and then I have a CSS folder and a JavaScript folder in there, and then I would place my front-end files in there. And then I can just link to them like you would normally link to them. So for example, with a link tag or with a couple helpers that we provide. So you could also say, okay, I'm linking to my CSS file like this. But it doesn't matter where this is. If you have something like, I don't know, Bootstrap or Tailwind or whatever you like to build with, then you could also do that and just change the link to where it should be living. And this is a very important philosophy that we follow, that we don't want to influence the way that you build websites. It should always be about the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Okay, cool. So this is like the fundamentals of templating in Kirby. Another thing that I want to show you is we have those objects that I just talked about, and they can fetch fields, which is great, but they also have a lot more power than that. They have multiple other methods that you can use to do all kinds of things in your templates to get access to your content that you create in your content folder. And just as in a demonstration, I want to build a little menu. So this would be a nav. Again, I keep this really simple, and this would be a link in the nav. And then within the link, I have the title for the page. And now I could either go on and build a custom or a manual link for every page. But what I want to do instead, because we already created those pages, I want to pull them into my template. So what I can do now is can use a for each loop in PHP. And it looks like this. Depends a bit on if you have ever worked with loops in JavaScript. They are quite similar. They always follow the same rules in pretty much every programming language. So if you are not familiar with this, it starts to make sense pretty quickly, and then you can reuse the same methodology in different programming languages, which is quite nice. So what we are doing right now is we are fetching a collection of pages. We want to get access to the About page, to all those pages in the content folder. And we can do this by using the site object again, because that is basically a link to our content folder. And from there on, get all the children. This is how we called it. This is a built-in method in Kirby. And it means go through the content folder and take all the sub pages in there or the subfolders in there. And for each of those subfolders, build a subpage. Now, and then with those subpages, this subpage is exactly the same as this. It's just not referring to the current page, but to every page within that loop. So I can do the same thing here that I just did for the headline and print a title, for example. So if I reload that, I get a simple menu up there with the titles. And now the URL is missing. It's still empty. And that is another method that each page has, which is called URL. And it gives me the absolute URL to every subpage. Now I have URLs to every subpage. And you might have already spotted that this is a bit weird, because who wants the arrow page or the home page in the menu, right? But this is how it works. It just really goes through those folders and says, okay, for every folder, I print this title and the URL of it. So we somehow need to get rid of those. And I also want to reorganize the menu, because right now, if you look at it, about me, yeah, maybe this is not what I want to print to have at the first as the first item in the menu. I think my projects are more important than that. So let's go back to the content folder. Here's our list of pages. And now we can sort them. And in Kirby, we have a convention for sorting those by prepending a sorting number. So I can say, okay, projects are more important. I want to have them at 1. And then the about page can be at 2. And I don't really care about the other ones. So this is now sorting those already in the Finder. And it's the same sorting that I get when I reload the page. So now my menu looks a lot more useful already, but I still have the unwanted pages in there. But by sorting those, I now have a way to differentiate between the sorted ones and the unsorted ones. We call the sorted ones listed, and we call the unsorted ones unlisted. And I can use that now in my code to filter. So I have this collection of pages, and I can say, okay, now let's add an additional item to this to the chain. So we're working with those chains of methods, and I want to filter them by listed pages. I could also do unlisted here. Then I would end up with error and home. And if I keep it with listed, I only end up with those who have a sorting number. Now my menu really starts to look like a useful menu, and this is cool. And it means that it's totally dynamic. And as soon as I start creating yet another page, for example, a contact page, it will automatically be updated. So I can keep on adding pages. I can also still keep on adding pages that won't appear there. So maybe I have a privacy page that I don't really want to link from in the menu, but maybe somewhere in the footer, I can just leave the sorting number out of that, and then it will work just like before. And this is next to fields. This is a very common principle in Kirby's templating system, that we access all these different pages that we create in the content folder and then do all kinds of things with those. We can combine them, we can sort them, we can filter them, we can search them, we can limit them and shuffle them, and do all kinds of things by just adding additional methods to it. So for example, this would now shuffle the menu on every page load. And well, while I can only give you a preview of those, you should really check out the docs, because we list all those methods that are available for every type. So we have the different methods for pages, we have different methods for site, and we also have different methods for files as soon as you start working with files. Because you can do the same things with the files that you dropped into a page folder, and then go through them, build a gallery, crop files, resize files, make them black and white, or blur them, or any kind of things that you can imagine that you want to maybe do with those those assets that you added to your page. So this has been a quick overview of the templating system in Kirby. If you don't like the PHP template engine, you can also install another one. We also have Twig available, for example, or Blade templates, for those of you who are more familiar with those. But the principle of those PHP APIs are the same. So you can still go through the content and do all kinds of things with the content. I think that's the most flexible part about it. So now, because before I run out of time, I want to switch to our admin interface. That is, I think, maybe the most important part, depends on how you look at it. So you can build a website entirely just with files and folders, never really look into the interface, and totally be done with this. And it's a great way to work with websites. But of course, oftentimes it's nice to have a web interface, to install this on a server and then be able to pull up your phone or your laptop on the go and edit content, and just have a more intuitive way for you or for your editors, if you work on a client project, to work with that content. And our admin interface is located at /panel. And if you open it the first time, it will bring up the installer. Then you can create a first account. And this is how it looks like. Again, in the plain kit, very simple, very reduced. We don't really bring a lot of fluff here. It's more about focusing to get started. And the special part about our interface is with the flexibility of the folder system is somehow you can do all sorts of things with folders and files that are pretty incredible. And we wanted to have an interface that does the same things, that allows you to be as as creative with your content and with the way that you manage your content as you are with those folders and files on the server. Let me just give you a quick example. So if I'm clicking through my bed project, you can see this is the basic setup of the interface, and it doesn't do this project justice at all. It doesn't really work at all. We don't really want to add a text, or maybe we just want to add a text, but we don't have any other fields in here. Kirby right now doesn't know how to treat this. What is this? Does this have subpages? Does this have files? It just shows this by default, but it's not really customized to it yet. And in order to customize it, we can now, for every page type that we created, for the About page, for the projects, for the contact page, we can create a custom interface in our admin panel. Again, this is done by going to the site folder, and there we have the blueprints folder. And the blueprints are a bit like the glue between what you've done in the content and what you're doing in the templates. And the blueprints for pages are located in the pages subfolder, and you can see it follows the same naming convention. There is now a default blueprint. And it works in the same way as template works. If you have a project.txt, Kirby tries to load a project.php template and uses that as the template for your page. Or if it doesn't find that, it will fall back to the default template. And in the same way, Kirby will try, if you go into the admin interface and you visit the project, it will try to find a project.yml file. And if it doesn't find that, it will fall back to the default YML file. So let's have a quick look at that. This is how it looks like. So this is YAML, it's called. It's a rather human-readable configuration format. And this is everything that is setting up our interface. So we are working with those columns here, and you might see, so this is the main column, this is the sidebar, and then within the main column we have fields, and within the sidebar we have a subpages administration and we have files administration. So this would be the main column and the sidebar. The names here are free for us. That's more like a self-organization thing. Then we can set up the width of the column, and within the columns we have those sections. And you can think of sections like UI features. So for example, in the main bar, we have this fields section that sets up the text area, could also have other fields. And in the sidebar, we have our subpage administration and we have our file administration. And all of this can be customized. And this is exactly what I want to show you now. So I'm going to duplicate that, create a project.yml, and this will now be linked to what we did in our content folder. So if I go back here and to bed project, you can see that this is called project.txt. So Kirby will take project, go back to the blueprints folder, go into the pages folder, and just have a look if there is a project YAML file. So it finds one, it takes that, and then it customizes the UI according to that file. If I open it up, I can briefly change this. And now we have full freedom to change all of this as well. The first step, I'm going to remove subpages because we don't really need subpages. This is just a project. It doesn't have further subpages. Could have some if we need them, but I don't really need them. Let me hide the sidebar. I think it's a bit clearer like this. So now if I reload the interface for our project, you can see the subpages are gone. We don't have to worry about them anymore. But I'm still not super happy about this. The files are pretty small. I can hardly see the previews. I just have one field, but I want to have additional fields. So let's take care of that. First of all, I think we need different fields. I don't need this huge sidebar text area. I need a rather regular sized text area that maybe expands. So I can change the size of this. Every field and every section has its own options. So you can go to our docs, to our reference, and then find all the options for the things that I'm showing you now. Really giving you just an introduction of the things that are possible. But then there are so many more options that you can use to fine-tune every bit and piece of this interface. So what I want to do now is I want to add more fields. I want to have a way to add a client, and I think this could be a simple text field. Now I have a client field. This has been an Apple ad project. This was nice. I also want to add a year because I want to know when this was. And I can use a number for this. So we have multiple field types that you can use here. They all have their strength and they all have like are perfect for certain kind of content formats. So you really should check out the list and just play around with those field types. And for the number, for example, my agency started in 2012. Let's pretend, and that it's that I don't want to be able to enter a year that's prior to that. So this would be 2023. So I've built in a validation here as well. Let's add a category real quick. This could be a select box, and my options should be architecture and design, and I don't know. Well, let's just leave it like this. Can extend it later. So now I have a select box here. I can say, okay, this was a design project. And I feel like all of this could be arranged more clearly. So let's move this around, and we can also lay out fields and put them into a grid. Now they go next to each other and it looks a lot better. So I can start to iterate over the interface and make it nicer and more usable, and maybe add some help text, maybe make the labels clearer, do all kinds of things that I feel like help me to enter content or help my clients to enter content. I still feel like this is not ideal. I still have this tiny previews for files. So let's change that quickly as well. First step, I'm going to change the width of the columns. Now I have a bit more space for the files, which is great. Don't need that much space for the form fields. And as a next step, I want this to change the layout. So we have different kinds of layouts for this files management. We can use cartlets, for example. They look good, but still not good enough. We also have cards. This is great. This looks a lot better. Now I can customize the cards and make them a bit smaller. No, they are not smaller because I'm already zoomed in. They would be smaller now. And I can even change the ratio of the preview. So for example, that would be square. And I can make sure that they are cropped, for example, because they will be cropped in the end on the on my website in the template. So I prefer them to be cropped as well in the interface. As you can see, there are tons and tons of options to optimize this in a way that really feels intuitive in the end. And that's kind of the idea, that we don't have to think about all different options when we are working on content. It should all be just about that content that we need. And we can extend this later. So if we feel like we need an additional field later, we can always come back to the blueprint and add an additional field. And what this does, so if I entered all of this in the panel, and if I go back to the content, to the bed project, the text file, you can see that it did all of this in the text file. So it's not living in a different universe somewhere in a hidden database. It's just doing the same things that we also did manually in the text file for us. I hope I can demonstrate this a bit better with the space that we have available. Oops. So now if I put them side by side, you can see this a bit better. So let's say this was 2022. So it changed this for us. This was at Apple's. This changed for us now as well. So, and the nice part about this is we can also do this the other way around. So for example, I find out that this was actually for Google. I can do that in the text file as well, and then come back and reload my panel, and then it will change here as well. So I can always decide, is it more comfortable for me to do this through the interface, or is it more comfortable for me to do this in the text editor? Is it easier to drop a couple images manually into the Finder, or is it easier to drop them here into the interface? And this can be done throughout the project. It never really changes. It's just a very, in my opinion, just a very nice way to work with those different levels of flexibility. To give you a bit of a better idea how this can look, we have this demo instance that you can use on our website. You can also download it if you want to install it locally, where we set up a couple example sites. They are still pretty simplified examples, but they give you a good idea how far this can go. So for example, this would be a blog, but a very visual one, maybe for a travel magazine or for a photography magazine, where there's a lot of focus on the images, and each article has a big image. So I've set up a different ratio here for the previews again, but then it turns out the drafts often don't have an image yet, so it looks really bad if they have also the same layout. And it makes a lot more sense to just keep them as a list. So you can combine this. You can work with different states, with drafts and pages that are in review. And then this article view is very much focused on entering the content for the article with metadata on the right, and then our blog editor on the left that is giving you a very visual way to enter content and to write your articles and combine different types of blocks, markdown and list blocks, and image blocks and gallery blocks, etc. So where you can drag and drop things around. Then we have a restaurant page that's kind of has the idea that you create a client project that is just a single page, like a micro page, but the editor or the client can go in here and they have all the fields that they need at a single glance. So they don't have to switch around between subpages. They get everything at once, and they can just go in here and edit content. Then we have a simple shop integrated with Snipcart in this example, also with the idea to have like live data up here, an agency that has set up its own client area, and every client has like private contact information and private notes that are only for the team. So all sorts of ideas that you can come up with and then build the interface for. And for a better real-life example, you can go to kirbysites.com, which is a community project, and people can submit their client projects there. So those are real Kirby built websites. But the nice part here is that every project also shares screenshots of the panel setup, so you can get ideas how others build their panels, how they configure their panels, and what they do with this. And I think it's a really great way to just get ideas, get inspiration how this can look like, how you can customize it, work with different fields, work with different sections, and just optimize the editing experience for your customers. I hope I didn't forget anything, but I think I'm pretty much through with it. There's so much more, as I said before, in the docs. If you feel like you completely missed some of the things that I talked about, or you forgot about them while you're working on them, you can always jump into our forum or on Discord to ask questions to the community, or we are there as well. In general, you can download Kirby, you can install it on your machine and try it for as long as you want. It is a commercial project. You have to buy a license if you find it really useful in the end. We try to keep it affordable. We also support students, and we support NGOs and charities with discounts and free licenses. So yeah, this is pretty much what I have to show for today.
Bastian, thank you so much. What a cool way to learn and see all of what's possible with Kirby. Just a short favor to ask folks, if you're watching, can we give Bastian some love, some emojis in the chat and all that, please? This was super cool. Thank you so much. And folks have been like really intricately listening in, and we've had some folks answering a lot of my questions. I'm still gonna post them anyway, just to yes, as Jess says, yell nice things time. This was super cool. Thank you. And I wanted to just, I know we mentioned having some questions. Folks, there's still time to ask some questions of Bastian. Please feel free to drop them in. And if not, come at us later. I posted the link to the Discord. Here we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I should also share, we have the same, but with forum before that. So not chat, but forum, which is also a good place. So it's more like support is happening more in the forum. Chat is more happening on Discord. So this is how we do it.
Fantastic. No, this was super cool. Thank you so much. I'm gonna, while folks still write up their questions, and I know Thomas in the chat has been so kind to answer a lot of my questions. I have to admit, I'm still learning here, so I just want to make sure I got everything clear. Now, let me see. My first question was, and I was corrected. It wasn't lamp, but it was MAMP.
MAMP, yeah. Oh, should
so
I
you
post
mentioned
the
that
link?
Oh yeah, all good. What I'm wondering is, do I, if I'm getting started and I'm not writing a lot of code yet,
yeah,
do I need that in order to use to understand and use Kirby?
No, not at all. Mac OS and I think also Windows have built-in PHP servers.
Okay, great.
So on our docs, if you're going to guide and then get up and running there and scroll down a bit, there is a terminal line that you can use to
Here,
just
I'll
start
share it.
up
Sorry.
the built-in server. And that is, of course, the most easy way to get started. That takes 5 seconds. But the PHP server has a few weirdness things. So it's not built for production. It's you're sharing. Yeah, okay.
I'm going to be strategic. We'll make it work.
Yes, good.
Fantastic. Thank you. Michael, I think before we did the navigation bar, Michael was asking how do we link pages?
It generally okay. I have to.
I'm thinking from either I'm going to share your screen again. I'm guessing from both. I'm guessing not just from the template, but also from the panel. Is it called the panel? Like, is the term panel?
Yeah,
I know it's Flash panel.
Exactly.
Yeah, could you perhaps show us in the panel how to create links?
There are various ways. So, for example, if I'm here in a simple text area, we have something like this where you can just add links here. That would be like the most simple way. So it always depends on what you're doing. So this would be a markdown box. So we have different kinds of.
We know Markdown.
You know Markdown? Good.
Yeah, we know Markdown.
So yeah, that's it. Like this is for every part of the content, you can always decide how you want to have how do you want to work with this. So this would be Markdown here, but you could also do. Let me pull this up. So this would be more like a what you see is what you get field. So you can create a link like this here. It depends on what you want to achieve. That's always like a design decision, but also kind of a content strategy decision. I need WYSIWYG here because the editor really needs a WYSIWYG editor here. So I want to create links like this, but in a Markdown field, it works a bit different. So we have different field types, and in every field type, it works a bit different how you create links. Well, the dialogues are similar, but the way that you're doing this is a bit different. I hope this explained it well. It felt a bit confusing. But yeah, it depends on the field type that you're using, how this looks like in the panel.
Not confusing at all. Thank you so much. So I guess in theory I could also just write markdown links with the square brackets and the smooth brackets.
100%. Yeah, of course. So
I
back
wanted to.
to
Sorry.
where have I been? Back here, yeah, of course. This is really just markdown, and when you use this,
Fabulous.
then it would just create the markdown link for you. Well, we have a custom thing that is called Kirby text. It is simplifying markdown, but you can also use markdown in here, and you can also switch this to markdown. It's getting a bit more into the details of configuration in here. But yeah, we have something that we call Kirby text, which is also extendable. So you can create your own little things. So for example, to include an image, it would do something like this.
And I guess this is all in the documentation guides.
Exactly. And this can be extended with plugins. This is why we came up with this, because Markdown has its own syntax, which is kind of fixed. And so we wanted to extend on top of that, and also find simpler ways to use those tags, because the Markdown tags are sometimes just really hard to remember and keep them right. So we have an addition on top of that. It's just Markdown extended, if you wish.
Oh, thank you so much for clarifying, Jess. Yes, I was going to ask because you mentioned WYSIWYG. So that is an acronym for what you see is what you get.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Acronyms.
No, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. So that means that the text you write is what the text will look like in the web page.
Yeah, exactly. So we have two field types that are related to what you see is what you get. The one would be this blocks field. I feel like I shouldn't make comparisons, but it's a bit like what you might know from WordPress, from Gutenberg. So you're basically creating blocks of content, different kinds of. So this is a text block. This is an image block. This is another text block. This is a quote block. So you can arrange text in a very visual way, and you can drag things around and then save it. And then if you go to the page, it would look like this. If you can also make things bold and make things italic, and that would be the what you see is what you get part about it. Because in Markdown, if you write Markdown, it looks different. You would use something like this, and then this is another specialty of our field. But in a Markdown field, you would have to use different kind of syntax sugar thingies to make things bold or create a link. And this is more like you would expect it from Word or any other text editor.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see what other questions we've got here. We got a question here from Tobias, who's wondering what your shortcut in Finder is to create a new text file.
My shortcut. Okay, now I feel really embarrassed. My shortcut is to copy another text file and then rename it.
That makes sense. That's how I do it 90% of the time.
Yeah, that's like it's this terrible thing in Finder where they just don't come up with a shortcut to create a text file, which is or to create a new file, which is just so weird. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for clarifying that. I like that, because it's a lot of these things that sometimes we see folks do, like cool computer shortcuts, like keyboard shortcut stuff, and at the end of the day, it's just like, look, I need to have a file, so I'm just going to keep a copy around, and I do that all the time.
It's this jump between VS Code and Finder. because most of the times I feel faster in Finder, but then again in VS Code, it's super easy and convenient. So you could just click on a folder and then say, give me a new file, or click up here and give me a new file. So it's a lot more comfortable there, but I often just forget about that, which is kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I got a question here from this debonair fellow. Ramon's asking, can I use this panel without needing to do much templating? Or can I use custom templates from the internet or plugins? I heard you mention plugins as well.
We have a theme directory. If you go to resources, we have themes here. So those are community themes that you can get. Some are free, some are paid. What you can also do is you can bring your own stuff, because it is HTML and CSS. So if you find a good HTML and CSS theme, people often, or not often, but sometimes they bring in such a static theme, and then they convert it to Kirby and then make part of the theme dynamic, or the entire theme dynamic. That's also totally an option. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So that and I think that covers all of the questions we had. Bastian, if people want to touch with you or check out more about Kirby itself, of course, we've got.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Hold on.
Oh no.
Screen strategically hid.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. So if folks wanted to get check out Kirby, of course, we've got the Get Kirby page, which I've just highlighted here in the video. There's the Kirby Discord. Is there any other links?
Yeah, I'm sharing it. Wait a second. And maybe Thomas' site is also, that I mentioned it. This one is also really, really nice.
Fabulous. Oh, Kirby sites. Yeah, cool. So
because that was the one with all the panel screenshots, so you can browse through all those projects and see how other people configure the panel and make best use of it.
Sounds great. Now I know what exactly not to do when I make my bad website tomorrow. No, it's going to be a lot of fun, folks. If you tune in tomorrow, same time, we're going to be Jess and I are going to be making a website using everything that Bastian, you have taught us so well today, and I'm so grateful. Do you have any advice for us before we go, or any parting words about, making stuff and, going out there and making websites?
I think a part that is really fun and that I couldn't cover today is like working with images and working with files in general, because like building a simple gallery, for example, is really fun, I think, in Kirby, because you can crop images and resize images in the template, and the template code can do that for you. And yeah, it's just I think it's nice.
That's wonderful. Bastian, thank you so much. Folks, watching live, watching later, thank you so much. Tune in tomorrow. We'll do some making ourselves.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, are you going to tune in?
Yeah, let's see. I'm a bit scared that you will start screaming at it like, oh my God, this is such a bad tool.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. We're going to have a good time. And yeah, I won't keep you all anymore. I know we're a little bit past the hour, but thank you all so much. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Bye-bye.